Hello, so I had some people requesting in streams, where do I store all my gas masks? And that's a pretty good question, because I've got so many of the things, probably like 130 plus at this point. I don't know, I've really lost count, and sadly I don't have a text file anymore, or sort of a spreadsheet to keep count of all of them. Maybe I ought to make one of those again. So they're everywhere and anywhere, basically. So the ones I've got on display are obviously here, so you've got the GP7 on the left, a GP5, a PDFD, a PTM1 in blue, a Y2K or U2K, the old style one. I just noticed the nose clip's fallen off of that, so I have to try and find it on the floor somewhere. GP4, the Y2K, the more modernised one, the PTM1 in white, and the GP5M in black. And then if we scroll over to the shelves over there, you'll notice that there's, on that set of shelves, a load of different gas masks. West German M62, Siebgorman Vistavision, Bulgarian PG1 and a West German M65. On the shelf above there's loads of different satchels from different nations, and if I scroll down you'll see that I've got the cheap Chinese half face mask there, the MM1 with a tank helmet there on a foam head, the Polish MP5, the disassembled kind of spares and repairs one, and the Soviet PMG one there. This wall I've got a M61V3 and an M61V2 and the sort of German World War II GM38 that's in bad condition. That's the only reason I'm hanging that up, otherwise I wouldn't. If we look right up there you might be able to see the edge of the Mark IV. There it is. That's only up there because I used to store it on the shelf but it kept falling off. So there as well is the Volksmask 44, or Volksmask 44, that's basically just sitting there because I've got nowhere else to store it, and I don't want to obviously hang that one by its straps. Right, now if we scroll right down, you'll see down here on the floor there is a load in the plastic crate of different masks. Quite a few of the panoramic masks are in there, but not all of them, as well as the PDF2 that's sort of hidden there. Right, now if I scroll over the camera to the cupboard, you might be able to see there's a load of crossbows stored there. But there's also in the bottom of the cupboard, which you won't be able to see, and hanging up in the cupboard, maybe, a load of satchels, so I've got loads of different masks piled up in that cupboard, and filters. Right, now, you won't be able to see anything here, but there's a wardrobe there, and I'm not going to move all the crap from in front of it to open it. But in that wardrobe, there's loads of NBC suits and masks and satchels just laid across the bottom. There's clothes hanging up on the rails in there, sort of like a normal wardrobe, just on the bottom of it there's just loads and loads of masks and NBC suits piled as neatly as possible. You also notice here that there's loads of different camo things and stuff like that in this room, because I store a lot of them in here where they're out of direct sunlight and the colours aren't going to fade. Now if I just put the camera down here, you'll notice on this big clutter on there, there's more piles of stuff like helmets. There's the Israeli M15 just sticking out there. The masks obviously on this pile are kept on top of the other stuff because I don't want the weight of the other stuff crushing the masks and deforming them. But yeah, there's body armour and stuff and everything stored there. That's just the aircon exhaust hose that when it's not in use is stored there. So yeah, also I'm not going to bother showing it in this video, but on top of random cupboards you'll find filters and other crap everywhere, just where I've found a little space where I can tuck one in to fit it. Now in this corridor there is a big shelf, and this shelf is where I store loads and loads of my satchels and mask pieces. So if you go to the left, let's see what's here. We have got a box containing the replica of the PH gas hood. Then just to the right of that, which I don't know if you'll see from this camera angle, there's a Mark V respirator in its satchel. Then there's the M10M, then there's the Scott GSR, then I think it's GP5 in that bag there, or it might be a GP7. But there's some Soviet masks there anyway, and a PMK. No, that would be the GP5 and PMK underneath. French M51 satchel, and then yeah, some more Soviet satchels and everything else. S6, an M10 chemical hood there. And I think if you go on the sort of shorter bags, there's some other stuff stored there. Also, I forgot to mention, but I won't go back and show it now, behind the curtain in the room where all the like bits of camo were hanging up, where there was some flat spaces on top of my DVD collection there, I've got a couple of satchels there as well. And at the end of the conservatory I don't store many masks in here because it gets very hot and the UV obviously damages the masks. But you can see I've got an MM1 on display on the mannequin that has an East German uniform on, but I've put the West German Fire Brigade helmet on. There's also a Serbian or Yugoslavian camo coat there that's quite faded. and an East German officer's cap. Right, on top of this chest of drawers, or not chest of drawers, bookcase, you can see there's, I think that's the Finnish M39's box there, Volksmask 37 and the Volksmask 40 are both stored there. That's not a gas mask tin, that's just my watch repair kit. There's also, I think, the Czech CM3 there and the Swiss SM67 there. They're all stored on top of here just because there's room there to do it. Oh, there's my British World War II gas mask in its little bag there, the civilian one. There's also some other masks and NBC suits stored under my bed where there's a bit of space as well. This is the cupboard where I store some of my most valuable masks and other masks that will just fit in there. I've got my original USM 9A1 in there, the Mickey Mouse children's gas mask, the British one obviously, and the C7 respirators there at the back there. The XM28 is in this cupboard as well. I think the one in the plastic bag here is another British Mark V. But as you can see, that's just, again, another cupboard where I've got room to store stuff. And now this is kind of the ideal storage situation, because obviously, as I said, you don't really want to hang masks up. But the reason this is a, you know, ideal storage sort of scenario for these masks is because they're in a cupboard with the doors closed. It's dry and cool there, perfect conditions for storing a mask. Obviously, lots of my masks are not stored in perfect conditions, and please don't imitate me how you store masks if you've got the, you know, places to store them. But the practicality is, especially if you're in the UK with small houses, when you start getting quite a big surplus collection, you're going to just have to start shoving stuff wherever you can find a space for it. And on top of this sort of cupboard, wardrobe, whatever you want to call it, it's not even a cupboard or wardrobe, is it? Sort of shelving units for vinyls. There's loads and loads of helmets all stacked on top of each other. So the majority of my steel pot helmets are up here, other than the ones that I have, you know, stored in other places. But there's probably a dozen or so helmets all just stacked on top of each other, several rows. There's at least 3 rows of them there. I can count 4 helmets on the left side. It's either 3 or 4 helmets on the left side, 3 or 4 helmets stacked together in the middle, and then sort of 4 helmets stacked on the right. So yeah, at least a dozen or so helmets, I'd guess, up there. And then I've got other helmets in other rooms of the house, just wherever I can store them. So there you go, that's how I store most of my stuff. As said, it's not a very practical way of storing things. This is often why I can't remember where I've got a certain mask stored, because when I want to do a video on a particular mask, I keep thinking which cupboard's it in and whatever. And sometimes I'll spend like 40 minutes going through every cupboard, pulling everything out, you know, pulling everything out. I can't find a mask, and then randomly at a later date, I'll end up finding the mask in a place I thought I'd looked for it. So yeah. This is not an ideal way of storing masks, especially not when you've got like 130 odd masks, all these helmets, body armours, camos and everything else, but there you go, I make do and mend.